My name is Jonah Wren, and I never planned on falling for the woman who signed my checks and colored her sticky notes blue like they were warning signs. I was 26, running a small branding studio out of a converted warehouse near the Savannah docks, splitting the work and the stress with my college friend Theo Marsh. We made logos and packaging for local food brands, shrimp boil seasoning tins, brewery labels, that kind of thing. Not the flashiest work, but it paid the bills and let me pretend I knew what I was doing every single morning I unlocked the front door. Delilah Frost ran the front office. She hated when people called her my secretary, and she made that clear on her second day, standing in my doorway with a stack of invoices tucked against her hip like a weapon. I am the reason clients think this place has grown-up supervision, she told me. She was 29, 3 years older than me, sharp enough to catch a pricing mistake before I'd even finished typing it, and she noticed things nobody else did. She noticed when I skipped lunch. She noticed when my hands got fidgety before a big pitch. She never told me to relax. She just slid the right folder into my hands and said, "Walk in like you already own the room." That kind of attention gets under a man's skin fast, especially when he's trying hard not to notice it back. I kept my mouth shut for months because dating the woman who ran my calendar felt like handing every doubter in town a reason to say I didn't deserve my own chair. Turns out, staying quiet about something you feel doesn't make it disappear. It just gives it more time to grow roots. Then came the night that ruined my ability to pretend. Theo declared we all needed a team outing after finishing a brutal seasoning launch. So on a Friday evening, we packed into the back corner of a dockside bar called the Tin Roof. Paper baskets of fried okra, bad lighting, co-workers fighting over a karaoke machine like it was a rare treasure. Delilah showed up late in dark jeans and a rust-colored blouse, carrying a small paper sack from the bakery 2 doors down. She set it in front of me without a word. Inside was a warm pecan praline. "You skipped lunch," she said, like that explained everything. It did explain everything, and that was the problem. By 8 o'clock, Theo had already butchered a classic rock ballad with more confidence than talent. Our junior designer sang something so dramatic the bartender applauded with both hands. I was nursing one beer, trying to be invisible near the wall, when Delilah walked up to the machine and started scrolling through songs with a look on her face I'd learned to be cautious of. That look meant somebody was about to get surprised. She held out the second microphone. I shook my head immediately. She didn't budge. "You talk through meetings with men who wear loafers without socks," she said. "You can survive 3 minutes of a song with me." I don't know why I stood up. 10 months of building a company had apparently taught me plenty about managing risk and nothing at all about protecting my own heart. The music started slow. Some old duet everybody's grandmother used to hum in the kitchen. Delilah swayed beside me like she'd known the rhythm her whole life. When it was my turn to sing, I came in late and rough, and she just grinned and nudged my shoe with hers, telling me without words that it was fine to be a little bad at something in front of her. Near the final verse, the words on the little screen said something about being lonely tonight. Delilah didn't sing that. She looked straight at me, steady and unblinking, and sang, "Take me away with you," instead. The whole bar erupted. Somebody slapped the table so hard the fries jumped. But Delilah wasn't laughing. Her cheeks had gone pink, and her eyes had gone serious in a way I hadn't seen before, somewhere between hope and fear, like she just handed me something fragile in front of 14 witnesses. She set the microphone down, grabbed her bag off the chair, and walked toward the side door without looking back. I followed her before I had any plan for what to say once I caught up. Outside, the evening air still held some warmth, and the sky was fading from blue into something deeper. She stood near the brick wall with one hand pressed to her stomach, like she was holding herself together by force. "I shouldn't have done that," she said fast, before I could even open my mouth. "I know exactly how it looked." "I don't care how it looked," I told her. "Did you mean it?" She was quiet for a long moment, long enough that I started counting my own heartbeat. Then she said, "I meant it before I ever sang it." And right then, standing in a parking lot behind a bar that smelled like fried okra and river water, I forgot how to be anybody's boss. I was just a man who'd been caught completely off guard by his own feelings. And worse, my phone was already buzzing in my pocket with a message that was about to turn this private moment into something much bigger than either of us expected. The text was from Theo, and it landed like a dropped plate in a quiet room. Grant Sorrell just walked in. He saw the song. He's asking if Delilah can be moved to another department before he signs the renewal. My stomach dropped somewhere near my shoes. Grant Sorrell wasn't just a client. His seafood distribution company made up almost a third of our monthly income, and losing him could sink the whole studio before we'd even had a chance to grow it. Delilah read the message over my shoulder, and I watched something shift in her face. It wasn't panic. It was anger, the controlled kind, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be dangerous. Grant Sorrell, she said flatly. I've spoken to him on the phone 3 times. He calls me sweetheart whenever he wants something faster than our contract allows. I told her I could handle him, and the second the words left my mouth, I heard how wrong they sounded. She caught it too, arching an eyebrow sharp enough to cut glass. I don't mean handle him like you need rescuing, I said quickly. I mean I'm not letting a client treat you like a line item on his invoice. That landed better. Good, she said. And for a second the tension between us eased, just enough to breathe. We walked back inside together, and I felt her fingers brush mine for exactly 7 steps before she let go at the door, like she wanted the choice to be seen but not turned into a performance. Grant was waiting near our table, a broad-shouldered man in his late 40s wearing jeans that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He smiled the second he spotted us, the kind of smile that has a blade folded up somewhere inside it. There he is, he said, loud enough for half the bar to hear. The young genius. And there's the entertainment. His eyes moved to Delilah like she was a line item in his own personal budget. I felt my jaw tighten, but before I could respond, Delilah answered for herself, calm as still water. I'm not available for stealing, Mr. Sorrell, she said. Grant laughed like we were old friends sharing a joke. Come on, he said. Everybody's available for the right offer. She isn't, I said. He turned to me, amused. You answering for her now? It was a trap either way. If I got loud, I'd look jealous. If I stayed quiet, I'd be letting him reduce her to a perk in his renewal deal. Before I could figure out the right words, Delilah stepped slightly ahead of me. No, she said, he's agreeing with me. Something shifted through the whole group standing near us. Like everyone in that bar had just remembered exactly who Delilah Frost was and stopped underestimating her on the spot. That's usually how respect gets earned in a room full of strangers, not by being the loudest voice, but by being the steadiest one when things get uncomfortable. Grant's smile thinned at the edges. He pushed further, saying he wasn't sure our studio had the maturity for his upcoming expansion, and demanded a formal review first thing Monday morning. I agreed evenly, keeping my voice level even though my pulse was doing something closer to a drumbeat. Then he turned back to Delilah and asked if she'd be joining that meeting too. She looked at me before she answered, and for the first time all night I understood that this question wasn't really about scheduling. It was about whether I'd let her decide for herself or decide for her. Do you want to be part of that meeting? I asked her directly. Her eyes softened just slightly with surprise, like she hadn't expected me to hand the choice back to her so plainly. Yes, she said. I do. Then you will be, I told her, and Grant gave a stiff little nod before making an excuse about another meeting and disappearing out the front door. The moment he left, the whole bar seemed to exhale at once. Our junior designer whispered something about following Delilah into battle, and Delilah picked up a fry and pointed it at her like a tiny sword, saying battle requires better shoes. People laughed, the tension cracked apart, and Theo clapped me on the shoulder muttering something about being proud and confused at the same time. But Delilah had gone quiet beside me, the adrenaline draining out of her all at once, leaving her standing in the middle of a room full of eyes that had just watched her hold her ground against a man 3 times her size in power and confidence. I leaned close enough that only she could hear me. Want to get out of here? I asked. She glanced at me sideways. Depends, she said. Are we talking about walking me to my car, or fleeing the entire state of Georgia? I was thinking somewhere with fried food and 0 chance of hosting another workplace scandal, I said. She almost smiled. Almost. And 2 blocks down the street, in a diner with cracked vinyl booths and a jukebox stuck on the same 3 songs. She was about to tell me something that would matter a lot more than a renewed contract ever could. The diner smelled like fried onions and old coffee, and Delilah slid into the booth across from me like she still hadn't decided whether tonight was a mistake or the best thing she'd ever done. A waitress dropped 2 menus on the table without a word and walked off, and for a second neither of us touched them. "I wasn't afraid of you finding out how I felt," Delilah said suddenly, breaking the silence first. "I was afraid of what happens after you know it." That sentence hit harder than anything Grant Sorrell had said all night. I told her I'd been noticing her for months, the way she hummed old songs when the printer jammed, the way she kept a tin of safety pins in her desk because, in her words, men in creative jobs have a dangerous relationship with buttons. She laughed at that, and the sound eased something tight in my chest that had been there since the moment she sang those extra words on stage. We ordered hush puppies and coffee we barely drank, and somewhere between her stealing fries off my plate and me pretending not to notice, her hand slid across the table, palm up. I looked at it for a second too long before I placed my hand in hers. No coworkers watching. No client waiting to twist it into gossip. Just her thumb moving slowly over mine while the jukebox stuck on the same worn-out song for the 3rd time in a row. "I like you," she said quietly, not in some passing office crush way, in a way that makes Monday feel complicated. I told her Monday could stay complicated as long as it meant we were honest about it. She smiled, but it faded fast when my phone buzzed against the table. Grant had emailed. He'd moved the review meeting up to 8 in the morning and titled it Boundaries Discussion, like he was daring us to prove him wrong. Delilah read the screen over my shoulder, and her grip on my hand tightened just slightly. "Maybe Monday should already know the truth," she said, and I understood she wasn't asking permission. She was deciding, out loud, the same way she decided everything, with her spine straight and her fear tucked somewhere underneath it. I walked her to her car afterward, the parking lot mostly empty except for a stray cat weaving between tires. She leaned back against her door the way she had outside the bar earlier that night, except this time there was no panic in her eyes, just something steadier. "I want to kiss you," I said, the words rougher than I meant them to sound. Her eyes moved to my mouth. "That's very direct of you," she said. "I'm trying a new policy," I told her. "Not being an idiot," she said. "I support it fully." When I kissed her, it wasn't rushed or clumsy. It was the kind of kiss that answers a question instead of asking one. When we finally pulled apart, my brain offered exactly one word. "Wow." Delilah pressed her forehead to mine and said that was almost elegant, and I told her I'd used everything I had on the kiss itself. Monday came faster than either of us wanted. I wore the charcoal jacket because she once told me the brown one made me look like I was borrowing somebody else's confidence. She arrived early, hair pinned back, a legal pad pressed against her chest like a shield she fully intended to use. Theo was already pacing the conference room when we walked in together. "You too good?" he asked. "We're good," I said. "Define good," he shot back. Delilah set her legal pad down calmly. "We went to dinner," she said. "We're interested in each other," I added. Theo rubbed his face like a man watching his own blood pressure rise in real time, but he didn't argue. "Effective today," I told him, "Delilah reports to you on scheduling and pay decisions. Any changes involving her get documented with both of us present." Delilah glanced at me, and I caught the flicker of something warm cross her face before she hid it again behind professionalism. Grant arrived at 8 sharp with 2 of his own people trailing behind him, hunting for weakness like a man who'd smelled blood in the water. He found none. We walked him through timelines, costs, and production numbers with a precision that clearly annoyed him more than it should have. Halfway through, he leaned back in his chair and said he was glad everyone had stayed professional after Friday's little performance. The room went cold. I felt old anger rise fast, but I remembered Delilah's hand brushing mine outside the bar, the quiet reminder not to react from the bruise. "Friday was after hours," I said evenly. "Delilah's work speaks for itself, as you've clearly seen this morning. If you have concerns about her personal dignity, that's not up for discussion." Grant's jaw shifted, but he had nothing ready to fire back. Delilah slid a printed page across the table without missing a beat, showing him a freight schedule that would save his expansion nearly 15% if he hit our production deadline. His own logistics manager leaned forward, genuinely impressed. By the end of the meeting, Grant renewed on smaller terms, but clean ones. No more hidden jabs tucked inside his compliments. After he left, Theo announced he needed pastries and possibly a moment alone, disappearing down the hallway fast. Delilah turned to me once the room had emptied, and I noticed she'd worn the earrings I'd complimented weeks earlier without ever mentioning it out loud. "You wore the charcoal jacket," she said. "You said the brown one looked apologetic," I reminded her. "I listen." Her expression softened into something almost tender, and she reached for my collar, testing the boundary we just built in front of the whole company. "We're at work," I whispered. "Then don't kiss me," she said. "That feels unfair." "It's a test of policy," I told her, and I didn't kiss her there, not after everything we just fought to keep honest and clean. At lunch, I found a folded note sitting on my desk in her handwriting. "Dinner Friday, a real one, no microphones, no clients, no shipping deadlines." Underneath, in smaller letters, she'd added something that made my hands go still. "And afterward, if I ask you to take me away with you, I won't be singing it." I read that note more times than I'd ever admit out loud, sitting at my desk like a man who'd forgotten how his own office worked. Friday arrived slow and then all at once, the way good things sometimes do when you're too nervous to rush them. I picked a small seafood place tucked on a side street where nobody from the studio ever wandered by accident. Delilah wore a soft green dress under a light jacket, and I spent the first 10 minutes staring at the menu without reading a single word on it. We talked for 2 hours straight, and none of it was about Grant Sorrell or contracts or shipping deadlines. She told me she used to sing in her grandmother's kitchen every Sunday until college got busy and nobody asked her to anymore. I told her my father used to say a good business builds something people can actually hold in their hands, and packaging was the closest I ever got to understanding what he meant. She reached across the table at one point and told me not to make what I'd built sound smaller just because it wasn't made of wood or bricks. I didn't have a joke ready for that one. Afterward, we walked along the riverfront while the lights on the water trembled with every passing boat. At her apartment door, she turned to face me the same way she had outside the bar weeks earlier, except this time there was no fear behind her eyes at all. "Walk me to my door," she said. "Maybe kiss me there. Maybe come in for one glass of wine if you promise not to narrate the whole night like it's some tragic old poem." "I make no promises about my thoughts," I told her. "Your thoughts I trust," she said. "It's your mouth I worry about." I walked her home, and I did kiss her there, slower and steadier than the parking lot outside the bar. Less shock this time and more of an answer we'd both been circling for months. The next morning she informed me over breakfast that I clearly had good instincts for reading people but absolutely none for handling toast, since I'd burned 2 slices trying to help her cook. That small, ordinary morning became the shape of everything after it. Work stayed clean the way we'd promised each other. Theo handled her scheduling decisions with the nervous precision of a man defusing something delicate, and we never once broke the boundaries we'd drawn in that conference room. But every Friday, without fail, we found somewhere that had nothing to do with deadlines or clients: a food truck lot, a used bookstore 2 towns over, a minor league baseball game where she heckled the umpire with such polite accuracy that strangers actually turned around to applaud her. By early spring, Delilah was offered a real opportunity. Running a sister studio, Theo and I had been quietly building plans to open 2 states away. It was hers to earn, and she'd earned it on her own merit, nothing handed to her because of who she was seeing after hours. For almost a full week, neither of us said the word distance out loud, both of us circling it the same way she'd once circled her own feelings before that first duet ever happened. Then one evening I came home and found her sitting cross-legged on my living room floor, surrounded by open folders and a half-eaten container of noodles, quietly working through whether the move even made sense for either of us. I told her I didn't want an answer that left me sitting on the sidelines of her decision. I wanted a say in it the same way she'd once wanted a say in that Monday meeting instead of being talked around like a line item. 2 months later, we relocated together. Theo held down the original studio in Savannah while I helped Delilah build the new one from the ground up, splitting client lists and late nights right down the middle. A year after that first karaoke night, our old team flew in for the new studio's launch party, and this time when the microphone came around, there was no scandal waiting to happen, just a familiar song everybody in the room already knew by heart. Later that night, away from the noise, she leaned her head against my shoulder and told me she'd meant it before she ever sang it the first time. I told her I already knew that, and that I'd followed her out that door without a single plan, and I'd go anywhere she asked me to next, no microphone required.